Well, the pressures on A&E, of course, have a knock-on effect on other services. And today, the new boss of the ambulance service went out with crews to see for herself. And Caroline Evans was invited along.
Are these people dreaming or what? I think they're sleeping.
Rushing to the scene of a road accident at Gilwern near Abergavenny. 4 people are injured. Fortunately, despite appearances, none of the injuries are life-threatening.
One of the casualties has been spine-boarded and taken to Neville Hall, and the other 3 are taken in for precautionary. They're walking wounded at the moment. They'll be further assessed down at Neville Hall and hopefully all released later on.
Across Wales, the ambulance service is under increasing pressure. Crews are expected to arrive at the most urgent calls within 8 minutes. But the latest figures show just 51% make it, well below the government target of 65%. Tracy Myhill is the new chief executive. As she prepared for a day on the road this morning, she told me where she thinks the problems lie.
We need to match our staff to our activity. We need to improve our rosters so that they're matched to our demand. We need to reduce our absence levels. We need to recruit more staff. So there's lots of things we need to do inside the ambulance service, but also we need to work with our partners in health boards, in hospitals, our GPs, the public, because all of us together all of us working together is the only way in which we can improve the service to the patients.
It's not long before the crew get their first call. It's to Ebbw Vale Shopping Centre. From base at Abertillery, they make it in 7 minutes, 56 seconds.
So we've just arrived here in Ebbw Vale. For the moment, we're not quite sure what's happening. They've asked us not to film for the moment for the sake of patient confidentiality. So just stand by now and wait to see what happens.
It's decided the man needs to go to Neville Hall Hospital in Abergavenny. The target is to hand him over within 15 minutes of arriving at A&E. But it's not working out that way. Cliff has been in the job 40 years.
We've achieved our standard on this particular call within the 8 minutes, but sadly now, due to the fact that there are patients in the corridor, we will be kept here until such times as we can be released.
It takes 59 minutes before the crew is cleared to go.
In the wider sense, there's a public education message that we need to do. We need to work more with our people in terms of our calls. The calls we've had today have been very appropriate. We don't always get calls that are appropriate for emergency services, so we need to work with people to help people with that and make sure there are alternatives for people to call. I think people call us because they don't know what else to do.
They won't ever find out what happened to their patient. Just as they're packing up, they get another call and they're off once more. Tonight, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Dyfed-Powys waded into the debate on pressures, saying more and more the police are having to drive people to A&E. He's now calling on the Welsh Government to find a solution.
Hello, good evening. He was forced to work against his will, living in squalid conditions with no one to turn to. But today, Daryl Simister saw the man who kept him virtually a slave jailed for 4.5 years. Sentencing Daniel Doran, the judge said the way he treated Mr Simister was repellent and wrong. Well, Caroline Evans is at Cardiff Crown Court for us tonight. Caroline.
Thank you. Well, this has been a case both shocking and sad. We heard today how when Daryl went missing after accepting some casual work bricklaying, his mother used to look at men working at the side of the road, hoping to spot her son. His father thought that he was dead. When they eventually found him, they said he was a broken man. And in a separate development tonight, police have told me that they are now searching for another man that they are increasingly concerned about.
Back together, Daryl Simister surrounded by his family. They'd come to see justice done.
What our son Daryl went through for 13 years was appalling and caused a lot of damage and harm. Thankfully, since returning home, he continues to recover both mentally and physically. I'll have to ask the people of Wales and the rest of the UK to be extra vigilant at all times. This form of slavery could be happening right under your noses.
2 weeks ago, Daniel Doran, the man who forced Daryl to work on his horse farm, changed his plea to guilty. A As he left court, he apologised.
Have you got anything to say to Mr. Simister this afternoon?
Yes, I'm very sorry for everything.
You're very sorry, did you say?
Yeah, why not?
He claimed too Daryl was his friend, something the judge said was rank hypocrisy.
Daryl, what do you think of young Dan now?
For 13 years, he was kept at Cariad Farm in conditions the judge said today proved substantial exploitation over a long period of time. Sleeping in this dirty caravan, a step up from the rat-ridden shed where he'd slept before on a settee, only his jacket to keep him warm. Working 7 days a week from 7 a.m. till 10 at night and washing in a horse trough. It was, the judge said today, degradation of a vulnerable human being. What happened to Daryl led to a wider police investigation. Acting on intelligence, police launched a massive operation at Cariad Farm and began digging for a body. Their information on this proved to be wrong. They found nothing.
But there were other leads too. Some have already resulted in the rescue of vulnerable adults. But in some cases, the information has been too sketchy and detectives have just not had enough to go on. They told me they're increasingly concerned for the welfare of one man in particular.
Paul Griffiths is the man heading the investigation.
We've got a lot of individuals' names, nicknames or descriptions, and we've been trying to locate them on the basis of what the information that we have. And we've been very successful in identifying a large number of individuals, but equally, sometimes our information is not substantial enough to locate individuals.
They can't release the name of the man, they themselves only have a nickname. But they say they are worried for his welfare and following all potential leads to try to find him. Daryl's family found him after launching a Facebook campaign, but it wasn't until he got home that the true extent of what had happened to him became known and charges followed. In a statement today, the police said what happened to Daryl was an appalling betrayal, which took advantage of his vulnerable and timid nature. The family say this experience has made them stronger. They now want to move on.
Well, it was estimated that in 3 years alone, the defendant profited by more than £200,000 by not paying Daryl. Today, the judge told him the threat that you knew you held over him was leaving the inadequate protection of the farm and fending for himself, which he was frightened to do. This was exploitation of a very serious and ruthless kind, he said, and he sentenced him to 4.5 years.
Caroline Evans, thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. It was like a scene from a movie, the words of the Royal Marines cadet instructor describing the lightning strikes which killed 2 people and injured 2 more in the Brecon Beacons yesterday. He and his colleagues tried to resuscitate one of the casualties. With reports of people injured on the summits of Corndee and Cribin, 4 mountain rescue teams were deployed. Our reporter Caroline Evans is in the Brecon Beacons for us tonight. Caroline.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, it's damp and blustery here now. Yesterday, it was hot with sunshine as hundreds of people made their way to the tops before the storm. The 2 men who died and the 2 who were injured are believed to be from England. Rescuers say they've never dealt with anything like this before. This time-lapse footage shows a hint of what was to come. These flashes we've highlighted were filmed mid-morning. But it was dry and hot for most of the time, and no one could have predicted the terrible tragedy that would unfold here around noon.
Well, thunderstorms in the Beacons and bad weather in the Beacons is quite normal, as you can see today. But and the thunder was forecast by the Met Office. But in 30 years, I can't recall any incidents where people have been hit by lightning and mountain rescue teams have been called to respond. It's very unusual.
The lightning struck at Corndee and at Cribin. But with multiple reports coming in from the public, 4 mountain rescue teams were sent up 3 separate peaks. On the top of Corndee, Royal Marine cadets came across one of the casualties and carried out resuscitation for 45 minutes until a mountain rescue team arrived.
James divvied out the job straight away, told me to get on chest compressions, and James did breathing, while James Nunn was doing everything else around the casualty kid, legs up, trying to get him covered up and then trying to keep him warm, and then instructed the lady that knew him, that was with him, to just keep talking to him and everything like that. So I think you could say the stuff we've learnt and now in the past kicked in, because it just does.
These youngsters were also out on the mountain doing their Duke of Edinburgh award.
The main thing about the weather is how sudden it came on, because in the morning, to put it in perspective, we were putting on factor 50 sun cream because it was such a hot day. We were in shirts and shorts, thinking it was just going to be a lovely day throughout the whole thing, and then it's just how quickly it just suddenly changed.
But it's the fact that with the altitude, the weather does just change like just in an instant, and it's just you're never going to really be able to know.
The lightning had been forecast by the Met Office, but the speed at which the weather changed took people by surprise. Walkers Donna Kavanagh and Olivia Howells took these photos as they were heading to the summit of Pen y Fan.
You could still see at least 500 foot in front of you. It wasn't reduced, so you couldn't see in front of your hand. You could still see where you were going and where your footing was. So I didn't think that it was that dangerous. And obviously, now knowing that different heights and stuff have an effect of lightning, but I didn't realise that at the time.
While a lightning strike like this is considered extremely rare, it's not unheard of. 25 years ago, Julian Fowler was with a group of scouts, all hit by lightning here. Another group on another peak was also hit and seriously injured.
Well, there was no prior warning. We were all knocked unconscious. I don't know how long we were out, but we slowly came round. We were unable to move because our muscles had all had an electric shock. There were 5 of us. We'd all suffered superficial burns, and when we were eventually able to move, we just got down the mountain as quickly as we could.
On average, 3 people die in the UK each year from lightning strikes. At Cardiff University, they study the effects of lightning.
First, it starts with a charging process in the cloud. When there is enough charge in the cloud, a discharge starts and it comes down towards the ground. As it gets closer to the ground, it's looking for the nearest object or the tallest object on the ground, and that's when it hits it. So it could be a building, it could be a tree, and it could be a person standing in a flat field.
Tonight, while 2 families grieve the loss of their loved ones, a 3rd person remains in the burns unit at Morriston Hospital in Swansea. The 4th casualty has been discharged from Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr.
Well, tonight, Dyfed-Powys Police have issued a statement saying they are continuing to liaise with the families of the deceased men. They also say that the man who was taken to hospital in a serious condition has improved and is continuing to recover, and inquiries are ongoing.
Caroline Evans and the Brecon Beacons, thank you.